guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another closer deep down look at a music box set. Today we've got something quite different, something that we don't tend to do too much on my channel, and that is look at artists from a different country. And today we're off to France to look at the legendary Serge Gainsbourg. Now, I got introduced to him years and years ago by a special person in my life, who introduced me to this artist because she was French, and when I used to go to France to spend time with her, I fell in love with Serge Gainsbourg because I do like a lot about French culture, their sort of the romanticism of the country, the not necessarily all the food, but some of the food, you know, like the fresh bread and the cheese and all that kind of wonderful things that are wonderful about France. Paris at moonlight is just beautiful. You know, I know it's just like any other city, but there is some sort of charm about the country. And I fell in love with some of the culture of the country and some of the music. French music to me, I mean, before him, I knew and heard of Jacques Brel, and I loved Jacques Brel. I've got a few of his albums. I think he's although I don't understand what they're singing about, but you can feel the passion, you can feel the intrigue that's in the music. And like when I used to listen to Serge, and I listened to the person that I was with at the time, listen to music and see them sort of like get emotionally drawn into it and even laughing at some of the lyrics, which I thought, well, this must be amazing. And I just fell in love with his style and the music and stuff like that. And so I used to have a couple of collections of his. I never had a full album. Well, I did have full albums, but they were compilations. I used to have a couple because you couldn't find his stuff over here at all. But then we got this. I've managed to grab this set, which is really, really cool. And it is called L'Essentiel des Albums Studio. So it's all of his studio albums. Sadly, Serge is no longer with us. He died many years ago now. But his music has left a legacy with us. So let's not waste any time. Let's have a deep down look at the albums of Serge Gainsbourg. So here we are, guys. Here is the box set. Now, I'm not going to probably go through the song titles because my French isn't brilliant. I do know a bit of French. Like I said, I used to have a French partner years and years ago. And this is where my love for Serge Gainsbourg became. It holds a lot of memories for me because it was a great period in my life in the 90s and late 80s. And so this is really, really important to me, this set. And I love his music. How can I describe his music? French. That's the only way I can describe it. He started off as like a sort of jazz singer. Not necessarily a crooner, because his lyrics were different. They were, to the French people, I believe they're quite humorous and quite sort of like, very much like if you think of artists like Mark Almond, where his lyrics, he sings about love, but he sings about a crushed love, a destroyed relationship, or things like that. And he's pretty much the same, a bit very much like, I'd put him along the same lines as Mark Almond, as Jacques Brel, as Scott Walker. He fits among those Leonard Cohen, those sort of singers. They all fit really well together. So we're going to go through the albums of Serge Gainsbourg. This contains all 14 albums on 12 discs. I think a couple of them have been doubled up onto one disc because they're quite short, but some of them do have their own disc. So we'll have a look at these. The box comes nice. It's a nice hard box. It has a booklet, which we will go through. And we'll start with the albums. So there's 12 CDs in here, but with 14 albums on them. Like I said, I think some of these double up. Like I think this has got 2 albums on it. de Jean Alain. I think that says. I don't know what it means, but it's in French. Fantastic. It's a great album, and I think this is a separate album on here as well, just called Serge Gainsbourg or Gainsbourg. So that's why we've got 17 tracks on here, because that album there lists it down as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks, and there's 17. So there's 2 albums on here. One album was recorded in 1958. That's tracks 1 to 9, and the second album is 1959, which is track 10 to 17. So you have 2 albums on there, Serge Gainsbourg and de Jean Alain. Cool. I think that's his debut album, and that's his second one. The first track on the first album I fell in love with. It's one of my favourites of his. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. The Poinisseur de Lilles. De Lilles. Really cool track. It's got a real good sort of harmony, and it's almost like he sort of not raps, but sort of sometimes speaks the words, and it's so quick, and then it breaks into like a melody. It's so clever. He's such a wonderful musician and singer, and I just think I would love to understand what you're singing about, but just because you don't understand what they're singing about doesn't mean you can't appreciate and love their music. For example, Sukaros, obviously the Icelandic band, sing in Icelandic and in their own Hopelandic language, which they've sort of created especially for themselves. But you don't understand, but you can still appreciate it. So I'm the same with Serge Gainsbourg as well. So that's 2 albums there. So here we have the next one, Maintenant, Serge Gainsbourg, and number 4. That helps with him calling that album that one. So we've got 2 albums on here. We've got one from 1961 and one from 1962. So the first 10 tracks are from the first album, and the second 11 till 18 is the second album, and they're all on the Fontana label. Well, some are, some ain't. I don't know which one. This is Universal. Really cool. I love the way they set it out like an album. 33. Excellent. So we have another album here. Oh, here we go. There's Grands Auteurs and Compositeurs Interpretes. Has it got another album on the back? Or is this just one album on here? Just one album on here. Joanna. Now, I wonder if that's the one that Scott Walker sang as well. I'm not sure. It's got Couleur Cafe on here, which I know. It says Petit Rose, which I know too. I'm so sorry if you're French and I'm getting all the pronunciations wrong. I'm not very good at stuff like that, but cool. It's a really cool album though. It's probably in my top 5 favourite Serge Gainsbourg albums, just like the next one. Really cool. This is another fantastic album called Initials BB, which is obviously about don't know, Brigitte Bardot, I'm not sure. It's got Dr. Jackdaw and Monsieur Hyde, which is one of his famous tracks. Bonnie and Clyde, another famous track of his. It's got a couple of his sort of like well-known tracks on there. Again, it's got its own CD. So I think maybe just the first 2 albums have different albums on there, because obviously maybe the length of the album. Yeah, so Bonnie and Clyde is with Brigitte Bardot. So that's why I think the initials BB, and it actually starts with that track, initial BB. Bloody Jack, comic strip, Dr. Jekyll, Monsieur Hyde, Torrey Cayon, Ford Mustang, Bonnie and Clyde, Black and White, Hold Up. So there's quite a few English titles on this one. Once again on the Universal label. I'm sure some of these are on the Fontana label. So this is Jane Birkin and Serge Gainsbourg. Now, Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin were married, I believe, and they had a child called Charlotte Gainsbourg, who became an actress, who starred in quite a few films, even the horror film with William Dafoe called Antichrist. She starred in that. Anyway, this is him with Jane Birkin. I've just realised you might not have seen any of this. This is called Je t'aime Monde Bleu, and it contains a Je t'aime Monde Bleu, which is probably his most famous track here in the UK. But it's got its own album. Very, very cool. This one is on the Fontana label. Then we have History de Melody Nelson, which is another famous track of his, Serge Gainsbourg. It's got Melody, Ballad of the Melody Nelson, Rasta Melody, Our Melody, The Hotel Particulier, On Melody, and Cargo Colte. So it's not a very long album because some of the tracks are only a minute long, but a couple of them are 7 minutes. So this is like a mini album from 1971. Yes, a mini album. What year was this one? Forgot to tell you the years, haven't I? 1969, and the one before it was 1968. So the one before that was 1967. Classic album. I remember seeing this in the shops back in the day when I used to buy records. So here we have, I can't even read it because of the pictures on there. It's just got Gainsbourg written there in the title of the album, which I can't read because it's covered with these sort of diagrams of different sort of apes. But maybe it's got the title on here. Vue de l'Extraordinaire. Very cool. 1973. Next one is L'Homme à tête de Chow or Chew. Wow, how are you supposed to read that? How are you supposed to read those tracks when they're on the same picture as the gravel? Wow. 1976, this album. I'm trying to see if I recognise any of the tracks you see. Yeah. Chez Max Coffee Pour Homies, I recognise the title of. This is a great album. This is getting towards the older albums of his career. I really like this one. Well, when I listened to it, I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. Some really cool sort of different vibe on this album. It's got a bit of a reggae sort of vibe to it, which I really enjoyed. This is 1979, so there's a big gap between this. He wasn't recording as much around this time. But yeah, it's a really cool album. It's like a sort of jazz, like a sort of reggae kind of album. Jesus, how am I supposed to read that? Mauvaises Nouvelles des Etoiles. Gainsbourg. Great picture. Lovely picture. This is 1981. Mickey Mouse, I remember that. Shush Shush Charlotte's about his daughter. Charlotte Gainsbourg. I think she's had an album out as well before. Yeah, very cool. Love on the Beat. These are his last two albums, which were, again, they were quite modern. Had sort of more of a sort of a different style to him. So his early albums were very jazz, and then it went to sort of reggae, and then he went to this sort of not disco-y, but it was just different to anything else that he's done, which is really cool. I do like the cover though. It's a really, really artistic cover. Really nice. Love on the Beat. Love on the Beat. Sorry Angel. Kiss Me Hardy. No Comment, I Know. Another famous track of his. I'm the Boy. Harley Davidson's Son of a Bitch, and Lemon Incest, which was another famous track of his. On a different label this time. It's on Mercury. And the last album, Under Arrest, was his last album he did before he passed away, sadly. Nice cover there. Very, very cool. This was a great album. It's one of my favourite albums, definitely. Very cool. See if I can read the tracks on it. You're Under Arrest, 5 Easy Pieces, Ballet Ballet Samantha, Suck Baby Suck, Gloomy Sunday, Aux Enfants de la Chance, Shotgun, Class Security, Dispatch Box, and Mon Legionnaire are all the tracks on there. So they are the albums. They are the 14 studio albums of Serge Gainsbourg that comes in this complete wonderful box set. So we'll put them back in there and we'll have a little look at the booklet before we finish up this video. So here's the booklet there. These are going to be just notes about each of the album, but I'll let you know now it's written in French. Okay, this is obviously a French release, but it's all written in French, so it's difficult for me to understand or read any of these notes, so I haven't, but I'll give you a look at them. But if you can see, it gives you like a little bit of a background between each individual album. So my favourite ones that I recommend from Serge Gainsbourg are definitely the first two. They're incredible. Then this one, really cool, and the Jane Birkin one is really cool, and the history of Melody Nelson's are really cool too. And Under Arrest, I would really highly recommend. But you want something a bit different, go for Aux Armes de Cantera, which is like a reggae kind of album. Very, very cool. He's such a cool dude. Sadly no longer with us. But like I said, he's got a bit of a history. He has starred in films as well. I say he was married to Jane Birkin. He's done records with Brigitte Bardot. He's got a daughter called Charlotte Gainsbourg, who's an actress, very famous. So he's given us a lot, and he's given us a lot of music. So that is a closer look at l'essentiel des albums studio of Serge Gainsbourg. So to me, music is almost language-less, if you like, or it's got its own language. It doesn't matter what people sing in. People, like at the moment, J-pop's popular, isn't it, and stuff like that in around the world, and they're singing in, it could be Japanese, Korean, different countries. People still appreciate the music and the passion of wonder that's gone into it, and I adore Serge Gainsbourg. I think he's fantastic. Obviously in the UK, everyone knows Je t'aime. That's probably his most famous track. It's been used on adverts, it's been used in films and all sorts of things. But look deeper into his music, and I urge you to go and look at his early music, because it's very jazz, but it's very, very cool. And it's just absolutely wonderful. And he was a character, a real character. He was a bit of a bit of a Keith Moon. He was a bit of an Oliver Reed, if you know what I mean by that. He's not afraid of swearing when he was interviewed on TV, or smoking on camera, or doing whatever, being sarcastic and that. When he's a bit of a lad, he was back in the day, but he's absolutely fantastic. His music is so varied. Like I said, it starts off with like a jazz sort of a, not crooner, torch singer, if you like. If like that's why I sort of compared him to people like Mark Almond, Scott Walker, Jacques Brel, uh, Leonard Cohen. He is in that vein of singer and style. And the early albums are like jazzy, and then he changed his music through the 70s, and he got a bit more that sort of 70s European feel. If you watch Giallo films, that sort of music that you have in Giallos, his music is quite similar to that in the 70s, with that work that he done with Bridget Bardot and Jane Birkin, who he ended up marrying and having a daughter with. And then he went into sort of like reggae and did some reggae material. And then his later albums were very sort of, again, different. I wouldn't go as far as say disco, because they're not disco dancing tracks, but they were more sort of rocky pop, and with a little bit of a sort of disco undergone, again with some jazz, not jazz, reggae feel to it at some points. So he's had a very varied career, and his music is so interesting and intriguing that it draws you in, even if you can't understand what he's singing about. But the way he performs it is it's legendary, and the story tells within the way he sort of performs the song. Like sometimes he's almost like talking the lyrics, sometimes he's singing it. He doesn't have the greatest singing voice, but he's just wonderful, absolutely incredible, and I love his albums. They're fantastic. So when this came up and came out, and I had a chance to pick it up, I think I picked it up for about £25. It's now out of print, of course, and I think you can probably pick it up on eBay for around about £50, but which you think, oh, that's a lot of money, but is it? You've got 14 albums, you've got 12 discs in there, and you've got everything that you really need by him. There is a couple of live albums out. There is a live set that I would love to get, but it goes about £60. I thought it's a bit steep to me. But yeah, Serge Gainsbourg's a closer look at him. So mercy for coming in and watching if you have. Massive shout out to my son. Look after yourselves.